to StatsCan, only 1 in 5 adults in Canada are meeting the required physical fitness recommendations. It gets even worse for children and for those on the spectrum. Well, we're going to learn about that today, because on the Autism Ontario desk is Dan Roth, owner of Level Up Fitness Academy, and we're going to be talking about something that, oddly enough, in my almost 6 years of doing this, we haven't talked about, and that's physical fitness in the autism community. Before we get started, and we got a lot to get to today, if it's your first time here or if you're coming back after our brief hiatus, I got to remind you how this all works. My job is to help get you answers from our guest, Dan, today. So throughout the presentation, you can submit questions using the Ask a Question box. They will come here to my iPad, and throughout the presentation, I'll aspire to get you the answers that you are looking for. No worries. If we don't get to your specific question, we will be following up with you afterwards. The folks at Autism Ontario and Daniel himself will be looking at these questions, the ones we don't get to. We got a few fun things going on today. We're going to be asking you some questions, so be ready for that. And we will be referencing some resources that help inform this discussion, including a very detailed PowerPoint presentation that we will be going through and most likely not being able to touch on everything in the hour we have. Finally, if you have any issues, don't be afraid to click on the Help button. Now, with all that out of the way, Daniel, thanks so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you here. I always get started with the same question, and that is broad, and why are we talking about this today?
So we are going to get to that,
okay.
But what I like to do anytime I get to talk to an audience about this is to ask a few questions to sort of illustrate the problem. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. That sound good?
That sounds good. And if you're going to put me on the spot, and I assume you're going to ask me questions about physical fitness, I'm going to put everyone else on the spot. So as I get asked these questions and go to answer them, you're going to get a thumbs up or a thumbs down out there. We call it a pulse check. I want you to go ahead and click on the thumbs up or the thumbs down as Daniel hopefully does not judge me, but takes me through this Q&A. All right, go ahead.
Judgment free.
Judgment free.
All right, Matt. How many times a week do you get regular, thumbs up.
Yeah.
I'll rephrase it. Thumbs up if you get regular physical activity at least once a week.
Thumb up, once a week.
He's doing good.
I'm doing good.
All right. Same question. Thumbs up if you get regular physical activity twice a week. At least twice a week.
At least twice a week, yeah.
Okay. And final question, at least 3 times a week or more.
I would say that would be the upper end of what I do. So I can say yes for 3 times a week, but right now, but clearly not always the case.
So pretty good.
Yeah.
So you're doing good. Okay. So now let's switch it up.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask you, thumbs up if you know someone on the spectrum who gets regular physical exercise at least once a week.
Well, I do not. I will say that our audience is pretty good, actually, on the other side, above the average as adults. 29% of them are out there once a week getting physical activity.
Good for you guys.
We're going to see how the rest of that group goes. But I will say that as far as knowing someone on the spectrum, yeah, I wouldn't say that, that they have even a planned once a week.
Mm-hmm. Right. So for the audience,
yeah.
Same question. How many of you know someone who gets regular physical exercise at least twice a week?
Right. And I guess we'll go on that as the third. How few people out there know somebody who is getting at least 3 times a week? Is 3 times a week the recommended?
Just for the general population?
Yeah.
It's not. It's done on like a daily amount of time. So you could break it up.
You could break it up.
But I find the easiest way to poll people to ask it this way.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's level set this as we're going through all the answers as they're flowing in, is that our audience themselves are pretty good. But like what you expect to see, I'm sure, almost every time you ask that question, is that when it comes to those on the spectrum, it's not quite as good. So you do this to illustrate how little activity, I guess, a lot of people are getting, right?
Yeah.
And to talk about how big of a problem it is, which is why we're talking about this today.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got you brought with you a little video, and this video is from your gym, right?
Yep. This is it's a small group of about 8 that I trained regularly, every other week, and at the time of this video, I'd probably had seen them for about a year, so about 25 times.
Okay.
Everyone in this group has a developmental disability. About half of them have autism, and I think it's a really nice example of a group that works really well, and we've been able to sort of shape it up and make it run really smoothly. And when it first started, it didn't look like this, but it's a nice example I like to show people to get some context of people with disabilities actually working out in a group really well, working hard and sweating. And,
all right, well, let's roll that video so we can take a look at what Daniel is talking about. I know. Okay, so we're looking at this is the group here.
Yeah, so I'm warming them up.
Yeah.
This is actually the first time I tried it this way.
Okay.
So you can see there's some floor markers on the ground, so they know where to stand.
Yep.
And because we've established sort of these routines, a few simple routines, we're able to introduce new activities.
Okay.
They've learned the basic structures of the routines, as you'll see.
Right.
So we're just warming up. They're basically just copying me.
So would this be after like years of working with you get to this stage? Like
this is no. I mean, it's totally dependent on the individual and the group. This group, we've been able to make it work really well, and only after a couple months of coming to me, we're able to get something resembling this really nice functional group.
Yeah.
So at first it was a little slower, and yeah, but I think it works really well.
Yeah, and definitely encouraging because I know, physical fitness. I'm not sure everyone knew what they were going to be getting into when you started talking today, and certainly when I think of those on the spectrum, my head didn't go directly to the gym.
Yeah.
It went to other things, which we will talk about. So I purposely off the top, we put your logo up there, Level Up. We put your gym ownership. But you're not a former athlete, or maybe you are, but you're also, I should say, you're also a behavioral science career. You had a career in behavioral science.
That's right.
Talk to me about how that all brought together what you're doing right now.
Sure. So, yeah, my background is in behavioral science. Been doing it for about 10 years, working primarily as a behavioral therapist.
Right.
And for about this past 6 years as well, I'd been working as a personal trainer and a strength coach, essentially, sort of privately, but always keeping them separate. And it was always a frustration of mine when we were supporting our clients, our residential adult clients, or even consulting to younger kids on the spectrum, to find them healthy activities was always really, really challenging.
Yeah.
There's just not enough services out there. And it always was sort of in the back of my mind, like, well, maybe I can do this.
Yeah.
So I opened up my gym in 2015, and it's been going really well since then.
Cool. Yeah. I apologize for continuing to say, even in the pre-interview, you're not a former athlete. I don't know that he's not a former athlete. We can talk about that. A question has come in, and we were starting to go down this route, and I think that it is a good baseline because I personally didn't know it. We asked those questions, but can we define what regular activity is as we move into this?
Sure. So for the purpose of that poll, usually I'll make it clear it's at least 30 minutes of increased heart rate, sustained activity.
Sustained activity.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't get that by just playing. Generally, there has to be something else for children. Okay. So
good question.
Yeah. So we showed this model, right? We showed this video of this class. They're going to get their 30 minutes or more, I expect, if they're coming in. It looked in control. It looked and resembles what it would look like if I took a class of some sort. And I'm glad that we showed that first because we got to talk a little bit about.
Here's the best part.
Okay, show.
I like the end of this video.
Okay.
This is winding down at the end, and everyone's sort of taking turns just sprinting with the sled.
Right.
And what's nice is this is an opportunity to socialize and learn some turn-taking skills, and everyone's really supportive. Everyone's cheering them on, and taking turns and high-fiving. So there's a lot of opportunities to learn a lot of skills outside of just exercise.
Right.
This is at the end. Everyone's just happy. I was asking them to flex. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, definitely does not look like that was, I mean, we all know working out is a chore, but it does feel good generally when you get into it.
No, that's the myth we're trying to dispel.
It is the myth we're trying to dispel.
Yeah.
And within this community, it's a problem, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So let's talk about the problem.
Okay.
I know we showed the happy faces and the flexing, but let's talk about the problem and and what we've got going on. What's going on in this country or within this demographic or in this cohort of autism?
Well, yeah, I mean, like my own personal experience, huge problem finding healthy physical activities for people on the spectrum, and the stats bear that out as well. It's true of just people with developmental disabilities in general, not just autism, but like the obesity stats for children and adults with autism are about twice that of the general population, which is quite concerning. It's obviously not just purely due to lack of physical exercise. That's just one contributing factor.
Right.
So there are like factors like diet, medication, all these other things. But there is statistically a lack of physical activity. It's well below the average.
Right. Yeah. Hard to find I guess the outlets for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And with that comes, increased risks. You brought up something already about medication being a factor, but no matter what's going on, increased higher BMI, obesity, it contributes to a lot of other issues, right?
Yeah, so I mean, like, there's a laundry list of increased health risks from lack of physical activity. The ones that I think are probably the most salient for this population are sleep problems.
Okay.
So sleep can influence so many other facets of your life and can manifest in so many maladaptive ways.
Yeah.
And one of the things that works really well to improve your sleep quantity and quality is physical exercise.
Okay.
So also, same is true for exercise and anxiety and depression. It's one of the best treatments. Yeah.
Well, I mentioned, I think off the top, I've been on the desk for 6 years, interviewing healthcare professionals, educators, advocates, and I mentioned we never talked about it, but I think we did talk about it once when we were talking about what parents need to do in this scenario, but we've not talked about it with the children. The questions that are coming in, I'm not going to go to this question because I know we're getting to it later already. It's about ideas for the winter months, but why is it underserviced or ignored, do you think? Why am I talking to you the first time in 6 years in this great program about it?
I mean, there's any number of reasons. Like you can see them up on the screen. But the ones that I hear most often from parents and support teams is safety concerns.
Right.
So they feel like the individual might harm themselves, harm others in the environment, or damage some equipment, and they're really concerned about safety. And
right.
That's almost universally is the first concern I hear. Yeah, obviously there's not a ton of services that do this, and there's not a ton of people who have sort of this kind of unique background of expertise.
Yeah.
There are a few. I employ some of them, but hopefully there'll be more in the future.
Right.
And yeah, often I think that exercise is not given priority. It's sort of it's pushed down the list. We have to deal with A, B, and C, and then maybe when that's taken care of, maybe you go work out.
Right.
And meanwhile, working out could be the thing that helps influence all the things upstream.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And right away, as you were giving your explanation, and as they were going up on the screen, we hear, "My son has ASD and is 14. He's clumsy. Doesn't fit well with typical sports." Mm-hmm. What kind of things can you encourage for fitness? I mean, this is something that is typical. We grew up. I got put into baseball in the summer and hockey in the winter, and you expected as children to go out there and play the sports, but it may not be the best thing, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And this is sort of like I'm a huge fan of adaptive sport programs and Special Olympics. And Special Olympics and my gym run a program together. It's great organization, but often I think people are sort of their thinking is constrained in their options that are available to just sports. So sports are great, but they leave too many people sort of like sitting on the sidelines because, to be honest, the rules of any sport are completely arbitrary. Someone just made them up. They don't make any sense. The demands to play a sport and get activity that way are really high. You have to understand the rules. You have to know where to go when you don't have the ball. You have to understand what everyone else is doing, what's happening, where to go, where to stand. If you don't know how to play, you're interrupting other people's ability to play the game.
Yep.
And it's a really tough ask for people that we know have a communication and social impairment.
Right.
So it might not be the best fit for everyone.
Yeah.
And so our approach is, well, if our goal is to get them physical activity, let's take a more direct approach. Just get them physical activity, not within the confines of a sport.
And so the first three questions that I saw, and there's probably many more that these are paraphrased or whatever came from, were all about that. I'm assuming that when you first start talking to parents, and this is the first thing, we've tried this sport, like it's the first place that people's minds go, right?
Yeah, often. Yeah.
Okay. Well, your approach is different, right? You own a gym. It is about getting activity, but let's talk about your approach. Let's talk about the science and the focus behind what it is that you do.
The science.
Wow.
I like it. Sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, a little bit of science.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we take a more direct approach, right? So if our goal is to get people moving,
right,
let's just find ways to get them moving immediately, right? I don't want to have to spend weeks or months teaching them a sport or some framework for them to be able to exercise. I want them to walk in to the gym, and we want to have things that they can do immediately, right? So we want a whole bunch of different activities ready as soon as someone comes in that we can test out with them.
Okay.
Right?
And in doing so, I assume that so you have them testing it out, and I mean everyone's going to be worried about this.
Yeah. So safety.
Getting hurt.
Yeah. So safety is obviously like a primary concern for us.
Yeah.
So there's a number of things that we do to mitigate the risk. So we're going to show some examples in the videos of this, but the ways that we can mitigate the risk are, one, we can modify the types of equipment that we're using.
Okay.
So there's a picture in a second that you'll see. But especially because we're often working with people who have a communication impairment, and we're not often entirely sure they understand the instruction, we don't want to be letting them handle equipment that is potentially dangerous until we're totally sure that they know what they're doing. So we can use options that sort of mitigate that risk. So we use things where if you were to like drop them, they wouldn't hurt you. So things like sandbags and medicine balls, things that can be like really heavy. I mean, like I have a 100-pound sandbag and 70-pound medicine balls, and things that can be really heavy and provide a lot of resistance, but you could literally drop them on your foot and you wouldn't even notice. So in this example here, this young girl, she doesn't have autism, but she has Down syndrome, but this is just a really clear example. She has very small hands, and I don't feel comfortable with her holding dumbbells because I'm worried she'll drop them because her hands are so small. So we have her hold these sandbells, those are 10 pounds each, and she's doing some weighted step-ups. And if they were to slip out of her hand, nothing bad will happen. Right? So it's just a really clear example of like, how do we take as much risk out as possible? And in that case, it's because of like a physical ability, but for someone else, it could be because maybe we're not entirely sure that they know what we're asking of them. So we want to just get rid of all the risk as possible. And then the other thing we do is we just choose exercises that people can begin immediately with like very little teaching, right? So we want someone to be able to come in. I'm going to show an example of this. We'll put you through a little exercise. But I want someone to be able to come in, and we have things ready that are totally safe, can provide adequate resistance, and are scalable. So if someone who comes in and is physically deconditioned, I need to have an option for that person, just as I would for like a 20-something who's like just a tank. It's so much energy just to get out, right? I need a scalable option. So that's sort of what we specialize in.
Okay, so I'm going to take you just off kilter for 1 second here, because continuing to get questions about other activities, and I want to just make sure that we're handling this in the right way. In hearing what you're saying now, it makes total sense. When we have somebody who is injured, or we have someone who they're aging or they've had something happen, what do? We put them into rehab and/or they go into a gym-like environment like yours, which is a controlled, safe environment that allows them to focus on the things that they need to focus on. And when we're thinking about children and that, we are thinking about things like, we have a question here about karate. We have a question here about sports in the winter. Being that this is the way you've come at it, your background, do you think that a gym environment is really the ideal scenario for getting moving in your estimation?
For some people, yes.
It's not for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
No, it's not entirely, no, it's not for everybody.
Okay.
I will say, though, that it's only happened once where someone was referred to me. They came to our gym. We were going to just meet them, and we weren't able to even do the assessment. They didn't want to stay, and they just kept running away. And
right.
Like, this isn't safe, so we can't do this. So typically, we're able to find things to get people moving and get people interested in what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, I mean, honestly, like the take-home message of what we're going to talk about is go with what the person you're supporting is interested in.
Yeah.
And if there are better options that are more accessible and that they're just naturally interested in, then absolutely do those things.
Do those things.
Right?
Question here, maybe I'll just ask this and then we'll continue on, is, and maybe you've seen this because you've had so many people come through the gym, is if an ASD child has physical aggression issues hitting themselves or others, do you think that martial arts are a good or bad idea for them?
That is a tough question. I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
I think it could be great. It could be a great way to channel that outlet.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, you could think of it as a replacement behavior. It also could be disastrous. I mean, honestly, I think that's too general of a question.
Yeah.
I think you need to treat each person as an individual.
Right.
Yeah.
You've met one child with ASD. You've met one child with ASD. And I think it does point to what you said too, right? Is that you'll know at the start. That's why you go and you try things out, right? Neurotypical do the same thing. You know, go try gymnastics, go try this, go try that. There probably isn't a hard and fast rule for anyone or everyone. No. Okay, let's get into a little bit more about the approach and how you guys do things.
Sure.
This slide I aired in the pre-interview. We're not talking about supplements that come in a
tub.
With a tub. So what other things are you doing beyond the small weight, the safe, whatever? What other things are you doing?
So I mean, besides like the exercise selection and trying to mitigate as much risk by the types of equipment we use.
Yeah.
I mean, I am a behavioral therapist. We do have a BCBA on our staff. My team is made primarily of people who have the same sort of background as I do.
Okay.
So I mean, we do basically use behavioral skills training to teach a lot of our skills, right? Which is instruction, modeling, rehearsal, and feedback.
Okay.
Okay. So if I'm going to teach you something, I'm going to tell you what it is. I'm going to show you. I'm going to get you to do it, and then I'm going to give you some feedback.
Right.
And for a lot of learners, that feedback at first is just reinforcement.
Yeah.
Okay. And we do use a lot of, like, it's called supplements on the slide because we use a lot of supplements to our instruction. So that might be something placed on the floor, like a hula hoop or a pylon like you saw in the video. You're going to see a ton of these in the videos to come. It's a lot about how we set up the environment of like showing people where to go. And I use a ton of painter's tape. There's painter's tape all over my gym. If I'm having someone hold the bar and I put a painter's tape on it and I'm like, hold the green. Right. So like things like that, and then we can fade those supplements out. But yeah, I mean, we're trying to set people up for success as much as possible. So we're trying to create an environment where it's really clear what's expected.
Right. Which is, I mean, in this community, it can be so important. Nonverbal goes with an issue, and really, I mean, you've already shown it. So I mean, it's sounding like it's a unique experience for almost every client that comes in, with some similarities.
Yeah, I mean, we run classes that will try, our goal is to get everyone moving, and we'll have scalable options within that class, but for our individual clients, everyone has their own individual plan. Like we have a different goal for everyone. So for someone it might be to get stronger, for someone it might be to lose weight, for some it's just an energy dump. It's like this person's not getting enough physical activity, it's going to come out in maladaptive ways. Let's try to channel it into pushing this sled or throwing this tire or lifting this weight instead of it being maladaptive.
For non-believers out there, I'm not sure we have any. Most people here are, but that's been shown to work. You got someone with a lot of that pent-up energy. It's showing up maladaptive. They start coming in and doing the gym, and they're able to find other outlets, and it mitigates it a bit.
There actually is a little bit of research. There's not a ton of research on this because it just like it doesn't happen a lot. There's not enough people exercising.
It's under service, right? We're talking about that.
But there actually is a little bit of exercise that are research that it can reduce stereotypic behaviors and other maladaptive behaviors. But yeah, like I mean, if you think about it as instead of thinking about it as exercise, think about it as a replacement behavior that's more functional.
Right.
Yeah, so
Okay.
reframing it.
So we're going to jump into something here. It's a ball.
Okay, so yeah, so as opposed to walking into like a typical commercial gym,
Yeah.
where it's overwhelming, there's bright lights, there's crazy music, there's all these weird machines, people in bizarre outfits, and it can be quite overwhelming.
Yes.
And you're like, whoa, this is not an ideal environment to learn.
Right.
Right? So what we want is to make our environment as conducive to learning as possible, especially because we're often working with people whose communication ability is impaired. So what I'm going to ask you, if you can kind of figure out what's expected of you. If you walked into this gym, this
Right.
is my gym, and that's a large truck tire at the end there, it's about
Okay.
50 feet away. And if you walked in, would you be able to figure out what's expected of you without me even saying anything?
I might want to try and bounce it off the X to get it into the tire.
strike
throw
zone.
it, hit the strike zone, roll it over, push it
Okay.
over to get in there. So maybe
Cool.
that.
All right, so we'll go to the next one.
Sure.
How about now? Could you figure it out?
I think so. Yeah, it looks like the balls belong in the tire. That's their home. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
get over there.
And if you couldn't figure that out, here's another little supplement. There's a little track guiding
Right.
you where to go. And if you couldn't figure that out, and either myself or maybe your parent or
Right.
someone supporting you modeled it for you, they picked up the ball, they walked 50 feet, they threw it in the tire, and then we gave you a ball, most likely you'd be able to figure out what is expected. Whether or not
Right.
you do it is not the concern, but you understand the expectation.
Right.
Okay? And the benefit of that is that it's a very quick way for me to assess, one, like your ability to understand instruction and to copy, but also I can assess your physical ability. I can see the way you bend over and pick up the ball. Are you loading your hips? Are you loading your back? Are you hinging in the wrong place? Are you able to brace? Is your gait off?
Yeah.
I can assess so many things about your physical ability just from something as simple as picking up a heavy thing, walking 50 feet and putting it down.
Right.
And then I can start to plan, all right, like eventually we're going to start putting in some corrective exercises for this.
Right.
That's down the road, but, and if this is the only thing I can show you how to do,
Yeah.
even this, like I can start shaping it. So
Yeah.
I can have you carrying different things for different distances. Maybe I can get you to step over that box.
Right.
And I can start to introduce new skills that way. And we can build up into a full hour-long workout of all these different modes of exercise.
Right, and with you defining for me for the first time what daily recommended daily activity actually looks like, is that heart rate up? It's your motto there about getting moving and not stopping moving, right? That's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, my ultimate goal is to have you move as much as possible in a bunch of different ways, and often it does not start that way.
Right.
My goal is for you at first just to feel more comfortable, to move a little bit, and have a lot of success.
Right.
I want to make this as fun as an experience as possible. Yeah.
Fun and gym does not always go together. And there is, there's a question here that I think goes well into this, is that, it's all fine and dandy for the person who's motivated and wants to do something.
Right.
Parents here might be motivated, they want the kids to do it, but we've got the kids to worry about.
Yep.
So a question came in that's like they can read your mind. How do you motivate the kids to exercise when they would rather be looking at a screen or interacting with a video game?
This is a perfect question. Okay, so we're going to show several examples for that, basically that exact case for
Right.
someone who's really interested in like video games. I think maybe it's best left to the video, but honestly, like we use a ton of different ways to create motivation. So music, activities. For some learners, it is necessary that we use external reinforcement. So we sort of have to create these artificial contingencies of, all right, Matt, you're going to do this, and then you can have this. And
Right.
maybe that's like you watch a video for a minute or whatever it is that we've determined is
Clean up your room and you'll get the cookie or whatever it is.
Right, but we don't do a ton of that. It's only for like a fraction of our learners. For most people, we're able to find either an activity itself, and I'm going to show a few examples of this, that is inherently enjoyable
Right.
and reinforcing, or we can find ways to make the environment reinforcing, like through music or the way it's set up, and we're going to show some examples of this. Yeah.
Okay, well, before we get into those examples, I think we're just going to let our producer know I think we're going to be having to move to the video very soon, but we can't move on without looking at the Waitmobile, which I think if it landed on the Batmobile, it might crush it. But what are we looking at here?
Okay, so yeah, so this is I like this example of sort of using creative reinforcement. So,
right.
So this is a young man. I think he's about 12 in this picture. And he was, he's on the spectrum. He's got, really hard time focusing. He's got ADHD. And he was getting into a lot of trouble at school, getting into fights and getting into detention and having all these like social problems at school, and he was referred to me. And, he was interested in sports. Like he wanted to be able to play. He's like, why can't I play soccer? Like, so it was really hard to get him to focus and motivate him. If I turned around for a second, he would be stacking equipment, trying to climb the wall to like reach the lights, or just something very dangerous. So he's a very creative kid and very like industrious. He always wanted to make things. So we, like using his motivation, we worked out an arrangement. We're like, all right, if you do A, B, and C, very clear what A, B, and C was. Right. Then we'll leave 15 minutes. You can make anything you want in here. We'll just build something. Right. And he's like, all right, fine, we'll try it. So we do A, B, and C, and then we have 15 minutes, and he wants to build a Waitmobile, which is a vehicle made out of probably like 800 pounds of barbells and sleds and plates. And it was a really fun activity. Like he was totally into it. I was into it. Yeah. Like I wanted to do it. But it was like, even that activity itself was quite physical. Like that was a workout. Yeah. So he worked out, really well with these skills he's not too interested in. Right. But because he knew he'd be able to do this fun activity. So then after that, each time I saw him, we would leave a little bit of time for him to do something fun. So he'd build a crazy obstacle course that he would compete with me, and he would always beat me. And it was really fun. And then after that, we just started embedding smaller activities like that into our workout. So we'd have like, we're doing something he's not terribly interested in, like we're doing some bench pressing or something, and then it's like a fun box jumping thing, and then back to something he's not interested in. And that way he was just motivated the whole time. We didn't have to create these contingencies. It just became fun.
Really hard question came in while we were doing this, something that we haven't talked about, and I don't think we actually will. So he's already there, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like you're at the thing, and now it's about making the best out of the thing, and the Waitmobile does that. But we have, what do you do for reinforcement? My son is constantly on the go, but I don't think he sees the purpose of doing physical activities. So there's a disconnect in that case.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that's a tough one. I mean, ideally, eventually, exercise does become paired with literally just feeling better. Right. But that is a long process. Yeah. So for some people, you do have to create these either contracts or these contingencies of like, this is what's expected, and if what's expected happens, and this is what happens. This is what you get out of it. So, like this is an individual thing with each person that we work with. So I was having a conversation just yesterday with a young girl on the spectrum, and she's trying to figure out she's like, what is the point of this? But she's being like very guarded, and we were able to come up with some actual goals that were meaningful to her. Right. Right. And now she's a little bit invested in it. And at first she just thought this is like a punishment. Like, why am I here? What do I have to do this?
Well, we all feel that way when we start going to the gym, right? Well,
no. So it's individual, right? It's a hard thing to answer. It's an individual thing. Yeah.
Now we got to burn, and I think that this is a good one. You talked about it. Everyone here is talking about the sport, the thing, and there's challenges you mentioned, but there can be a graduation, right? Getting in and getting moving.
Yeah. So often clients, I'll often get a lot of clients, kind of like Asperger's clients who are maybe going to like community college, and they want to learn how to use the weight room, but they don't feel comfortable learning in a normal environment. Right. So they come to me and we teach them some basics, and we set them up on some few simple programs and progressions. Yeah. And when they're comfortable, we send them on their way. So we've done that with a lot of people. It's really effective. Yeah. It's just an easy way to learn because, learning in like a big gym environment it's a tough ask. Yeah. And then also, if a sport wasn't a good option for someone initially, and they've built a little bit of success working out in a more direct gym environment. There's some success and some momentum. Now maybe is the time to try to introduce them to a sport because
Yeah.
they're in a little better condition. They got some little more confidence.
Right. And this is what I was thinking too, is if they don't, you know, it could be for the future, right?
Yeah,
They want to do X, they want to do whatever, we can do that now by taking these first initial steps in this controlled environment.
Yeah, for a lot of my clients, the goal is teaching them independence and for them to be able to do this on their own in their own settings.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it's like eating all of your vegetables. You got to do it, so, you know.
Vegetables are delicious, Matt.
I know, I'm just saying, as a parent, though, you just got to, maybe at some point it's about finding the best outlet, but just saying it has to occur. And that happens, I mean, this is not a problem with, this is a problem with, but it's not exclusively within this community.
Yeah.
You know, my son is 11 years old now, and he doesn't love sports. He's into performing arts, and he loves a lot of other things, but, you know, he has to be told that we have to move.
Yeah.
We have to. We can't be sitting around doing it. As fun as what we're doing is, it is super fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to get ready to roll the examples of what happens here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these examples up, and you're going to help talk us through it and what it is that you are doing here. I haven't seen this, so I am interested as well. So Marissa, if you can show us what it looks like.
Sure. So yeah, you're going to see a whole bunch of people of different abilities, both in terms of like communication and functioning, but also in terms of fitness abilities.
Right.
So this first one here, this is Scott, and he's made a lot of progress. You're going to see some direct examples of progress. And with Scott, my goal for him is every time he comes in, I'm trying to increase the intensity just like one notch.
Okay.
So it's like, if I was to graph his progress, it would look fake. It would be a perfect diagonal line going up.
Yeah.
Every time he comes in, we just do a little bit more, right? So
Okay.
everything, I keep track of everything, and so either it's the amount of weight that he's pushing or lifting, or some variable is going to get increased. So this is one of the first times I had him push the sled.
Okay.
And then you'll see him do it again, and he's obviously like, there's a bunch of weight on there.
Yeah.
He's about 100 pounds heavier, and he's really moving.
Well, I mean, he seems into it. Was motivation
So
not?
So what's interesting is I think he really likes that he has mastery of this.
Right.
So he really owns it, like it's a big part of his life. Like he loves that he's getting better at this.
Yeah.
So this is the first time I taught him how to do a push-up, and you'll see like he's not comfortable. He doesn't feel comfortable doing this. It's really difficult for him.
Yeah.
And then you'll see the progress he makes after
Right.
only a couple weeks.
And you know, that's something that.
Look at him banging them out.
Yeah.
And so also, like, it's not a perfect push-up, right? Like, there's some form issues. His hips are a bit behind him. But he's learning the pattern, and I can fix it later. So I'd rather have him moving in this, almost perfect way instead of focusing on the minutia, right? Like, I want him moving as much as possible. I can clean that up later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, the idea of mastery, that can be a motivation as well. This is one of the reasons we get attracted to these video games that the parents were talking about, right?
Yeah, it's like a level.
Yeah.
You level up.
Level up, yeah.
So this is just this here is just I included this because it's he does this completely independently.
Right.
So there's only one thing in my gym that could potentially kill someone, and it's this leg press. And I will never let anyone use it unsupervised.
Right.
But I'm letting him because he's totally mastered how to use this. So he sees what's on the schedule. There's a visual schedule. He checks it off, or he sees it, goes, sits down, bangs out the right number of reps, finishes it, and then checks it back off. So it's completely independent. I speed it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And this guy used to be really, really prompt dependent. So something like this would take, 5-10 minutes.
Right.
Right. And now he's just banging it out in like a minute. And what's cool too is like he's doing this independently, and he's very routine based. And there was an incident where there was an emergency in my home, and I had to cancel all my appointments, and his family's like, oh, what are we going to do? Like, he's going to be all upset because he's missing his workout. So they figured, well, maybe we can just take him to the local rec center. So they took him to a community gym, and he was able to like use the leg press and the exercise bike and all the things that we do.
Yeah.
And it worked really well. So
How often would he be in your gym?
I see him twice a week.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is Matthew.
Yeah.
So Matthew I see pretty frequently too.
Okay.
And Matthew's progress is not as linear as Scott. It's more of like a zigzag.
Okay.
So some days he comes in and he's just like feeling great, and we can push it and do all these amazing things. And some days we have to sort of back off a bit. And my goal for him is just to have him engaging in exercise as much as possible for the time that he is there.
Right.
So there's a similar thing we're trying to teach him. Push-ups here. This
Yeah.
is one of the first times. He's He's like not really comfortable.
Yeah.
And then you'll see he makes a lot of progress. He's getting better at it. You know, and like if you were to meet both of these guys, you'd never think that they go work out.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like banging out push-ups and pushing sleds and like sweating and stuff, and it's really cool. Like, and their families wanted you to see this.
Right.
Sometimes his mom comes in, who is awesome, and when she comes in, like he's really happy, and then we can try like some new things. It's great because I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, there you go.
So there he is working out. So that way, there's other examples of some families working out, but sometimes we use family members to help motivate people. So Matthew is on, we do use external reinforcement with him.
Okay.
And so I do play around with the reinforcement schedule. It was like a fixed ratio of just one. You do one activity, it gets one, basically one reinforcer.
Okay.
And those can take different forms. But then we sort of experimented with the schedule. So we were trying a fixed interval. So it's like, let's work out for 3 minutes, and then we'll give you like a 2-minute break, and you can have all these reinforcers. You can pick whatever you want.
Yeah.
So we sort of play around to try to find the best results. That's really about as technical as we get.
Yeah.
But really the goal is just like, we want this guy moving as much as possible in all these different ways.
Just keep moving. Do you find with these two, anyways, I mean, clearly, you said he's up and down, but the first gentleman was much more into it, as you said. Do they have a regimen they do at home as well? Have they gotten to that point? They're working out independently.
The first guy, Scott, does.
Yeah.
They've got him on an exercise bike.
Okay.
Because he really likes it at the gym, so
Yeah.
he does do some exercise at home. And a few of my clients, same thing. Yeah.
Right.
They've been like, wow, he's good at this. Maybe we'll put something in the basement.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Is that the end of that video roll, guys?
Nope.
No, we got more? All right.
So he's just finishing up.
Okay. Doing the sled again. Oh, and the tire push.
I like this right here. Ah, he's so proud of himself.
Yeah.
He should be. I mean, the thing's heavy. It's like 150 pounds.
Right.
So this is these two brothers that I was training.
Yeah.
I used to train them by themselves, and I just felt I couldn't get as much out of them as I could.
Yeah.
So I was talking to his parents about it, and we decided to try having the whole family work out together, which worked out amazing. So it increases like the supervision ratio.
Right.
And it also like, they love working out with their parents. They're more into it.
Yeah.
They're more fun than me, and his parents are now like exercise role models. So
Right.
instead of sitting in the lobby drinking coffee and donuts while their kids work out, they are working out. Like, this is the norm. People work out, you know.
Yeah,
like, you
it's
wanna
part
be
of the
healthy.
day. Yeah.
Right. So it's a great way, and we do this with a few of our clients. We'll have family members or people they really like work out with them.
Right.
So I'm filling in for his mom on this one here when she was away. But yeah, it just worked out so well, and everyone loves it. You know, everyone's happy, and they leave tired and sweaty, and they feel great.
Yeah.
You know.
And they're doing it together, which is
it's a
great,
great
right?
family activity. Yeah.
Well, much better than that thing you get dropped off at. You have to do, you know.
Yeah. Right. So I mean, like, yeah, and the parents are serving as sort of models here.
Right.
Right. So you can see the dad's showing his son what to do. Ah, there he goes. Good for him. All right. So these are two guys, a little higher functioning.
Yeah.
And this gentleman here, he doesn't have autism, but I like showing examples of him.
Okay.
He just really likes working out. Like, he loves getting stronger.
Yeah.
He likes lifting weights. There is no external reinforcement required. Like, it's his thing.
Right.
It's probably one of his favorite activities, and I love getting to work out with him. Like, it's just so much fun.
Right.
It's like a treat. So I'm asking him some questions here.
Can you tell us your name? And how long you been coming here?
I'm assuming they can hear.
Yeah.
And what do we do here?
It's about weights,
Yeah. What else?
like exercises.
Yeah. Do you like it?
I like it.
What's the best part? It's okay. All right. What is your favorite exercise?
Arms, chest.
Can you bust the flex for us? Let me see. Oh, look at this guy. Roll up the sleeve. Let me see. very nice.
Cried.
I like it.
He loves
Awesome.
Yeah.
Would you recommend this to other people?
Yeah.
Yeah? Awesome. You glad you started coming here?
Yeah.
Sweet. You tired from that workout we just did?
But I had fun. I had fun too.
Yeah. Yeah, I had fun too, man. Cool.
Okay, so this is Rob.
Okay.
And Rob's a young adult with autism.
Yep.
He's also an artist, which
Okay.
is cool. Show some of his art after. And when Rob first came, he was really anxious about working out. Like he was not into it. He hid in my bathroom for like 30 minutes. He's like, I don't want to do this. It's new. It's different. I'm not.
Yep.
You know, and he was having a really hard time doing it.
It's like in his 20s, you would say, or?
Just under 30, probably.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was having a really hard time, you know, and so we worked up really slow, and
Yeah.
and we started teaching him how to lift with like sandbags and medicine balls and stuff, and then he got really good at it, and he liked that. So I interview him as well, but he really liked that. He's like, oh, I can lift 10 more pounds now. I can lift 20 more pounds.
Right.
You know, and I asked him some questions about it, and I think his answers are really. Like, I was almost like feeling a tear well up while I was asking him these questions because he was like, his answers were great.
Make sure that we go to that when it's on. Is it easier for you in general to figure it out with younger children? Parents take them there, they're still in that spot, or is it just completely different for everyone?
No, it's totally individualized.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
completely. Okay. Can we show that interview, Marissa? Are we in a position to do that?
Robert. And how long have you been coming here?
I've been coming here since last November.
All right. And what do we do here?
We do strength obstacle course and at the end baseball.
Yeah. What do we do? What do we do for strength? What do we do?
We do deadlift, bench press, rows, and step-ups.
And have you gotten better at it?
Yes.
Do you know how much more weight you lift now?
Right now I've lifted 145 pounds.
Yeah. And what did you start with when we started?
40 pounds.
How do you feel about that?
I'm getting stronger and stronger every day, and I feel proud of it.
Yeah, you should. Yeah. So that's what I was going to ask you next. Do you feel any differently since you started working out here?
I feel more confident.
Oh, that's great, man. I love to hear it. What is the best part of what we do here?
Getting stronger and more confident every week.
Nice. What's the most fun thing we do in here?
Doing the TRX.
Nice. Yeah, you're pretty good at that. Awesome.
Yeah, so he's quite a talented artist.
Wow.
And, so I bought some of his art. I have some of it at my house. I have some of it at the gym.
Yeah.
And I also put it up for consignment, so a lot of my other clients can see it and they contact him and they buy some.
Nice.
He's awesome. Check him out.
All right, we will. And on that note, we're going to on the screen is that link, but we're going to bring it back now due to time. And I'm going to say to everyone, that whole video, as you saw, is linked. It is available on YouTube. It's available on a website that you can find in the Resource Center, so that you can go through that entire story and see these other examples of modeling. Some of these folks who walk into your gym were uncomfortable at first. They hid in the washroom. I am not going to let you do that, but we have 8 to 10 minutes left, and I have a lot of things that we need to cover in that time. So I'm going to take 5 minutes myself to kind of go through it.
Sure.
There's a slide later in the presentation that talks about something about keeping it simple. Mm-hmm. For those who are thinking about creating a program of sorts to get people moving and to do that, what are some of the things that you would say just to start out with? Where do you want to start with people on the spectrum to get them moving?
So you've got to find something motivating.
Right.
Like that's not negotiable. You have to find something motivating.
Yeah.
A lot of those videos that we're going to show, there was a lot of examples of using music and sort of like cause and effect actions. Like there's
Right.
a little kid who he really liked knocking something over. So we would put these toys, and he would push the sled and knock him over. He just thought it was like the greatest thing.
Right.
Right. So just whatever it is, it doesn't matter. For a lot of our clients, it was music. So I listened to some of my clients. I listened to show tunes for an hour. I'm like, I don't listen to show tunes, but they do.
Right.
And it helps them work out. So
Yeah.
fine. So whatever it is, you have to find that thing that's motivating for
Right.
them, and that becomes like the anchor of the workout.
Right. Very unique scenario. Most people, when they go to the gym, it's because either they want to lose weight, they want to look better, they want to do some sort of sport, or they've had an injury. In this case, you have to figure out what that thing is to get them into it. But what we saw from most of the people there is that it feels to me that in some way, the rewards of working out are universal. And even if they're not articulating it the same way, people like that sort of that pride and everything that goes along with it.
Yeah, yeah, and when that's not the case, or it's not the case yet, then we supplement it. So we'll create behavioral contracts, or we'll have these external contingencies where it's very clear. It's like you do this, and then this happens, and this that happens is something enjoyable.
Right.
Right. So maybe we need that at first for a while, and then we can fade that out. It's like the way you would teach any skill, like teaching someone how to fold a shirt, or any skill. Like you assess where they are, you shape it up, and you find something reinforcing, and then you fade the reinforcement. It's just like any other skill.
And there's other things that you talk about that are similar to what I've seen on this desk as it relates to things. What do you mean when you say keeping it on the list, or it's on the list?
So yeah, I just think that this is often the way people think about physical activity, as if it's like this thing down the list that they'll get to when the other more important things are concerned. And I don't think that's the way that's productive.
Right.
I think that physical activity, sleep, nutrition, these are the things that are the foundation of a healthy lifestyle that influence all these other behaviors you see above the surface.
Right.
So trying to just say, oh, we'll deal with all that later is, I think, a mistaken approach.
Okay. As a parent, which most of our audience is, they're asking, and we have to get to some of these, but they're asking you for advice on what to do in certain scenarios.
Yeah.
Many of which, guys, we're going to try and get to, but it's hard with not knowing all aspects of the kid. I'm going to flip it around John F. Kennedy style. Not ask that, is what can they do? What can we do as parents or caregivers to help in this scenario?
Sure. So, I mean, one simple thing is you can be a role model.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, it is a bit harder to ask your child to go exercise while you don't exercise at all. Like, they've never seen that. Like, why am I doing this? Is this some random punishment? So setting a good example is obviously one thing. I think reframing the way you think about exercise is tremendously important. Stop thinking about it as a chore or something you have to go do, Matt. It's something that could help everything else in your life. You could have more energy. You could feel better on a daily basis, sleep better. And, like, what else can you do? There were some other examples on that video of people just starting out with us.
Yeah.
And they didn't look amazing. It was like a person reaching an inch to put something in a box.
Right.
And sometimes that's where it starts. It starts really slow. But we have the patience and the vision to know that, like, okay, if we can teach this, we can shape it. Next session will be better. Next session will be better. In a week, it might be in like a year or a few months, maybe they're working out for 45 minutes, sweating and lifting and getting resistance and all these amazing things. So go slow. Find one or two things that you can shape and increase and scale up. Have something that's motivating, and be patient. Have a vision of where you want to take it.
Right.
Right? Don't just expect them to come in and do an amazing workout and like, oh, I asked him to work out. He said, no, that's the it. That's the end of it.
Isn't that the biggest problem that anyone has, right? They go back to the gym after 9 or however long, and then they expect it to be a certain way, and they forget that it is that building blocks approach. I must say, I mean, in watching the videos, I push sleds with weights on it. I don't think it's fun, but everyone there seems to be enjoying themselves. Now, I'm sure you picked the right people, or maybe not, but it's got to be a big part of it, right? Is making sure that people are having fun when they are there.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. I mean, if it's not fun, why are we doing it?
Yeah.
Right. Like one of my clients, he's a young man. He has Asperger's. He's very like theatrical. He works for Famous People Players, which is like a puppet show. Yeah. And he's like one of the performers. And he doesn't really like working out, but he's like, Dan, I have to lift heavy puppets, and like they're heavy. Can you help me? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So like he's not too interested in working out, but he's like, can we listen to this song? So we'll put on a song from his performance and
Yeah.
we'll like break into a dance number in the middle of his workout.
Nice.
Right? But it's a way to get him motivated and get him to do it. And he has motivation. He's like, I know I need to be stronger to
Yeah.
be better at my job. So things like that. Just anything we can do to make it more fun is our goal. Like, what else are we doing this? It shouldn't be a punishment.
Got a question here, and some of them I'm going to answer on your behalf, and some I'm going to have you dive in on. The first one is, how does a parent find a fitness location in their community that will accommodate for autistic individuals? What are some questions that I should ask? So before you dive in on that, I think everyone should remember, if you don't know where to go, the place to go is Autism Ontario. They will connect you with the resources that are in the community and that are available to you. The other note is, the assessment, the start, and all of that is very important, and you can do that at your facility even if it's not the place they work out at, right?
Yeah, and I am trying to work on like a simple assessment tool.
Right.
That could be like distributed with some tips. Like that ball and the tire example. I mean, you can think about that in a number of different ways,
Right.
but it's a pretty clear example of a way to assess a whole bunch of different skills, mobility and like physical ability and like mobility.
Right.
So we have a battery of things like that we do when people come in
Yeah.
to give us an idea of where to start them with. And I'm trying to put that into a tool and hopefully be ready soon.
Right. And I think that what I've learned in watching this and that is that you've got a controlled environment that can be adaptable, a lot of one-on-one. These got to be things that we should be looking at.
Yep.
They walk into a spot or to do a thing, what would you be to say the things that parents should stay away from?
So I think, like large chain gyms, not the greatest starting point.
Yeah.
Especially if you are limited, if there's only one gym in your area and it's a giant Globo gym. Gyms are really only busy between like 6 and 9 in the morning. Then they're like a ghost town until 4 to 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
So going off peak hours, and there's like basically no one in there, it's less distractions, it can be quieter, it's easier to make accommodations. But what I would recommend is you look for smaller private gyms or smaller studios.
Okay.
Right? So that environment can be controlled, like you can have times when it's empty.
Right.
So sometimes in my gym we'll have a few of my trainers each working with the client individually. But we have some clients where that doesn't work and they need the space entirely to themselves, and we're able to make that happen.
Right.
So, obviously you can't do that in a giant gym.
No.
So you're looking for like a smaller space where there's more control. And, like any industry, some trainers are great and some are not.
Right.
And you have to sort of do some investigation and be like, is this a quality person? Do they know what they're doing? Like, do they genuinely care about their clients?
Yep.
Or is this person just want to sell me 100 workouts? Is they a salesman?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter really if they know that much about autism, because you do, right? Like, you're the advocate for your child or the person that you support.
Yeah.
Right? And you're armed with all this information, and you just need someone who has like a decent sense of how to get people moving safely and like biomechanically, and you can give them all this information about how to use motivation and like token boards or choice boards, any of these things that you think will be beneficial for your learner.
Right.
And you can create what we do in your own community, and then more people will see it, and then it'll become more of a thing.
Right.
And that's what we want.
We're going to go one more question, and then unfortunately, guys, we're going to have to wrap this up. But we have a question about someone whose child has other medical issues. So I guess other limitations to physical activity. I got to imagine, based on what I've seen, you're always modifying, and so it's further modification. But do you counter that?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I pride myself on. Like I'm a strength and conditioning specialist. I know how the body works. I know how to modify exercises. So, if I'm like, we need to make this person's hamstring stronger, I have 1,000 ways of doing that, and I can make them safe, right? We've had people in wheelchairs in the gym. We've had people with like leg braces, people with mobility issues. So whatever it is, like one of the things I think we're really good at in our gym is making modifications for people so that everyone can always be doing something.
Right.
Yeah.
So we didn't get to a lot of the stuff that you want to talk about today. We didn't show everything that you wanted to show. Clearly, being this is your life, and there's a lot to share with folks. We might need another session, but I'm going to give you an opportunity. Call it your moment of Zen. What would you like to leave our audience with today before they go?
Yeah, well, thanks. So I think that my main goal was like to show a whole bunch of examples of people of different abilities, different physical abilities and different functioning abilities, and that didn't limit them.
Okay.
They're all able to exercise, and so the person that you're thinking of, that you support, try to take what you've seen today and think, well, how can that be applied to the person that I'm thinking about? Because there are so many ways, like there's endless options, like,
Yep.
and really be creative. Okay, so we tried to show all these examples of creative reinforcement. It doesn't have to just be, Matt, do this, here you go.
Right.
Right, there's so much more than that. But even if it has to be that, that's fine. But it doesn't always have to be that way. We can make it more than that, right? And rethink the role of exercise in people's lives. Like, it could make a huge difference. Like, if someone is exercising and then they're sleeping better, then there's so many potential health and behavior benefits
Right.
just from that simple thing.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just like, I would stop thinking of it as a chore, so stop saying that.
Yes.
And think of it as something that could be really beneficial. And try to create these opportunities. If you live somewhere where there's not a facility like mine,
Yeah.
try to make one. You know, like contact a few trainers, see if they seem like decent people, tell them about your situation, and see if they're willing to do it. And if you don't try, you'll never know.
Right.
And this won't happen. So.
And it is a demand economy, so make sure
Yeah.
that you are in one of those communities. Reach out to Autism Ontario. They've got the line on what's going on. It can help organize and bring that sort of thing together. Daniel, thanks so much for all the time. Daniel has been good enough to provide his contact details to the team. So I know your questions weren't all answered. I know there's a lot of individual stuff. As always, Autism Ontario is going to try and get back to you on that. A couple resources I did not reference. This PowerPoint is available for download in both official languages. There's a lot more detail on it. Links to these videos that we got mainly through, which should further illustrate some of Daniel's points on how they go about doing things. Another thing we didn't talk a lot about, but you kept mentioning it, is that it's not just its activity, but it's part of that diet, health sort of or activity model. We've linked to some of the Canadian guidelines on the various items that you should be checking out, because to be honest, we started this, you know, I had no idea on all of these matters myself. It comes, we grow up, and we have to, I think, reassess or recheck ourselves sometimes. This webinar webcast will be recorded, archived, and available on the Autism Ontario website tomorrow, so you can watch it again and pick up the nuances that you may have missed. Share it with a friend, family member, or a loved one. And as always, we thank you for your participation and look forward to seeing you next time on this Autism Ontario webinar series.